What's going on, guys? Willem Carver here, and tonight I'm finally going to be talking about Wretched Rites, the newest underground death metal, black metal, really just a metal festival, here in Sacramento, California, which is something that I think is long overdue, as I feel that Sacramento has always had to compete with the Bay Area for the music scene, and more often than not, the latter wins out. So this is something that's new, and I think it's something that's long overdue, and I think that it was executed phenomenally, as I'm going to be talking about here tonight. Just to keep some joy and whimsy going, I still have this sitting over here from the last video, so I'm gonna put this on. I don't know when this is getting uploaded, but I'm filming this 3 days away from Thanksgiving, so. But as I was saying, this is a new thing for Sacramento, and it was put together by Sacramento metal fans for Sacramento metal fans, as well as those who traveled in, but it's mainly to boost up the Sacramento scene. It was put together by members of Diphage and Abhorrency. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing the former correctly, but they worked super hard to get this all together, getting bands scheduled, getting merch printed, getting curfews settled and venues laid out. A lot goes into stuff like this, and I think with a lot of the risk that goes into stuff like this, I think they came out exceptionally well. And I, like many others, created a lot of memories, and I'm going to share some of those stories here tonight because I feel like you can find footage of most bands elsewhere, and I think it'd be a little more interesting to talk about what happened for me. So let's get into that. The first story starts with the main headliner for the first night, Sadistic Intent, Los Angeles death metal legends. This was my second time seeing Sadistic Intent, the first time being in Houston earlier this year. I've also met Rick and Bay Cortez at Dark Realm Records, their record store, a few times, and we would chat for a couple of hours about the upcoming fest and other stuff. And another thing we would talk about is my friend Nathan, who flew all the way from upstate New York to Sacramento to attend this festival, primarily because Sadistic Intent is one of his favorite bands of all time, and he doesn't get to see them very often. He booked the trip months in advance, and I told him he could crash here at my place, and that's exactly what he did. In visiting Rick and Bay's store, I've gotten stuff signed from them all the time, so I was not looking to get much of anything signed. I have my copy of Resurrection here. And I've also gotten an obnoxious amount of stuff signed for Nathan in my trips to Dark Realm. However, he found something here in Sacramento that he was not going to leave without getting signed. Impending Doom is one of Sadistic Intent's earlier EPs. I think it might be their first, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But it is an earlier one, and it has not been repressed on vinyl in a super dickin' long time. And as such, those vinyls can become quite expensive. I mentioned in the past that one of my local record stores here, Kicksville Vinyl and Vintage, recently got in a huge used metal haul of CDs and records and tapes, ranging from stuff from the late 80s to the mid 2000s. Maybe some outliers there, but you get the point. And me and Nathan stopped off at Kicksville Records before the first day, and lo and behold, on the wall, there was a copy of Impending Doom by Sadistic Intent.
Holy freaking balls, dude. Jesus Christ. $200 is fucking crazy, though.
I probably would have bought it and gotten it signed if it was just me there. However, Nathan, being the biggest Sadistic Intent fan that I know, and probably one of their biggest, basically started hyperventilating when he saw this thing. So I stepped out. I knew it was his to have. It was priced at $200, so it was a pretty pricey record. He best offered the store owner $175, which he took, and Nathan walked away a hell of a lot poorer, but a lot richer in his heart because he had found probably the vinyl that he had been looking for a very long time, and the one that he's, you know, it's at the top of his list for the one that he wanted. So I'm feeling pretty good. I spent
feeling better.
35, 40 bucks. I feel pretty good. I got some money to spare for the fest. What did you buy, Nathan?
We got an OG Impending Doom, dude. This is we peaked, dude. We peaked, and now we just gotta get it signed.
So we stopped off at Target, picked up some Sharpies, and we planned out how we were gonna go about finding the Cortez brothers. We drew out a long, elaborate plan of finding the dressing room or hanging out around there. If we couldn't find them initially, what we were gonna do after, you know, before or after their set. Fortunately, it didn't come into that because the millisecond we walked through the door, they were sitting right there at the bar. And as I mentioned, I have talked to Rick and Bay multiple times in the past. Super cool guys if you ever get the chance. They will talk your ears off for hours. But Nathan had never gotten that chance, and I decided I would just stay out and I would let him have his moment.
does this, I'm gonna go walk around.
And it seems like he had a pretty good time because they talked for about 45 minutes and even into a band set, which not quite sure how you have a conversation over loud death metal, but they seem to do that. And of course, Rick and Bay both very kindly signed both the record as well as the inside of Nathan's vest. And to say Nathan was giddy at the prospect of his favorite death metal band signing his vest was an understatement. He was ecstatic. I'm happy for him. You know, I've spoken to Rick and Bay multiple times. I've gotten stuff signed, but for Nathan to be able to do it, given that it's one of his favorite bands, is super cool. And that was definitely one of the highlights of the weekend for me. And of course, this goes without saying, but Sadistic Intent killed it live. I don't think I really need to go into any more detail. But I will go into some. Here's some footage. The next story that I'll talk about has to do with yours truly, and it is more focused on toys. Before the first day, me and Nathan went to a couple of local stores around town that I like to go to, record stores, comic book stores, toy stores, and at Big Brother Comics in Midtown Sacramento, I did purchase a WWF action figure. I purchased this $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase 1991 Hasbro figure. And then at the festival, I also purchased this Primitive Warfare Zippo. Not a Zippo collector, but this thing just looked too cool to leave out. It was only 20 bucks too, which I thought was a really fair deal. So these are my two new toys for my toy cabinet back here. And I posted on my Instagram that night and I tagged the festival that, you know, a couple of new toys for my collection. The festival promoters, in this case Matt Jensen of Abhorrency, obviously were following stories that they were being tagged in throughout the weekend, and they went ahead and reposted mine. After he reposted mine though, Jensen actually asked if I was looking for any more specific Hasbro WWF figures. As he said that he buys them in bulk, he picks out the ones that he wants for his collection, and then he just resells the other ones, which is a pretty cool hobby. I told him I was looking for The Undertaker, Dusty Rhodes, and Rowdy Roddy Piper. The latter of two are a little bit more expensive, but Hot Rod is a pretty cheap one. And then he told me that he had a couple of spare Hot Rods, and he told me that he had a couple of spare Hot Rods and that he would just give me one. So that was very cool. Me and Nathan actually got to the venue pretty early as they were setting up because Nathan was interviewing Antichrist Siege Machine, which I don't know if the video is up by the time I upload mine, but I'll link his channel in the description below if you want to go check him out. And I saw Jensen walking around and I asked him, you know, where Hot Rod at? And he literally just pulled it out of his hoodie pocket and just handed it to me. So that's super cool. You know, I always say that the metal community survives by people just doing cool things for each other. And that is something that he did. It was just really cool. Could have asked for money, could have charged me for it, but he just handed it to me. And it's in very good condition. There's no real paint issues on there, much like the DiBiase there. And yeah, I played with it by the bar while Nathan was filming his interview for the next 15 minutes. Now that I got those two little feel-good stories out of the way, I'll actually talk about my review of the festival. Overall, it was a really good time. I think everything was run super smooth. I think that the marketing was fantastic. I thought that the security was great. You know, sometimes at Harlow's you can have mixed experiences with their staff, but everyone from the people at the bars to the doors to the ticket scanning, everyone was great. Like everyone was on top of their game, was ensuring that people were safe, ensuring that people were thoroughly searched, but not being too handsy. The crowd was absolutely fantastic. I recognize a lot of people from the Sacramento scene as well as people from outside the area. Obviously, my friend Nathan was from New York, and I'm pretty sure he was one of the people who traveled the furthest. Everybody was really cool, and that's something about the underground scene, as opposed to the sort of more big market festivals, with ours being Aftershock. Everyone kind of has an idea of what they're getting into, what the sort of jargon or code of conduct at those shows are. So it paves way for a lot of more camaraderie, as opposed to a bigger event like Aftershock, where it's kind of feels more like everybody for themselves. So that's why I'm happy that Sacramento has an underground scene now, or an underground festival, I should say. And then of course I have to give my flowers to all of the bands that performed. Everybody that I was able to see was absolutely fantastic. Outside of the headliners, my favorite bands were probably Primitive Warfare, which was the outside of the headliners, the band I was looking forward to the most, and they absolutely killed it. Horns and Hooves was a lot of fun. My pal Bob, or El Presidente as people seem to call him, told me they were a lot of fun, and they were. I picked up one of their CDs, and they had a very fun and erotic set, which I like sleazy music. I don't really know why. Probably says a lot about me as a person, but hey ho. And then for the following day, Abysmal Lord was insane. I'd only listened to a couple of songs off of their studio releases, but I was told that seeing them live was a whole new experience, and that was definitely the case. They probably had the sharpest sound of the entire weekend, and outside of the headliners, and honestly you may be able to put them over the headliners, I think they had maybe the most energetic performance of the entire thing. And then there's obviously the headliners, Sadistic Intent and Antichrist Siege Machine. Both of them were absolutely fantastic. I got to talk to the guys from ASM after Nathan interviewed them, and they were super, super cool guys. And one thing I will say about any band that sells merch, if you're printing your stuff on Comfort Colors, I will happily pay an extra $5 to $10 for them, but they were selling their t-shirts, which are on Comfort Colors, which are high quality blanks, for $20. And that is unheard of. I have never seen another band, I guess apart from Primitive Warfare, because they were doing the same, sell their stuff for $20. So I'm very happy about that. Bought multiple shirts. And of course, ASM's performance was loud and in your face, especially for a band that doesn't have a bassist. Those were definitely my favorite performances of the weekend, but that doesn't take away from everything else that was on the card. Funeral Chant, Abhorrency, Caveman Cult. I feel like every single band that I saw performed earned their place on the card. It wasn't feel like they were just shoehorned in just to put up some space or fill up some time. Every band was absolutely fantastic, and I can't say the same about most other music festivals I've seen. Lastly, I just want to give a shout out to some friends and people I met while at the festival. First off, thank you to my friend Nathan. Obviously came all the way from New York, and I had a pretty good weekend with him. The only downside is the motherfucker is the pickiest eater I have ever met in my goddamn life. How do you come to California, try In-N-Out, and don't get any spread? Please explain in the comments below. But other than that, thank you for coming all the way from New York for this, because I think that shows the promoters that people will come out of state for events like this if the bill is right, and hopefully that leads to a lot more greatness in the future that can match this one. I want to give a shout out to my pal Jordan, or Rapture Textiles. He's a patch vendor on Instagram. I'll link him in the description below. Thank you for a lot of fun memories, being drunk and getting kicked out and banned from the venue for crowd surfing too much. I actually counted his crowd surfs during Abysmal Lord, which is the set that got him booted. He crowd surfed 16 times, which I think may be a record for people crowd surfing at a show. And again, that's just Abysmal Lord. That doesn't count everything else. And lastly, I want to say a big thank you to the guys in Diphage and Abhorrency, and specifically Matt Jensen from the Abhorrency, for putting this on. I think you guys may have created the biggest thing in the underground Sacramento metal scene. This is something that was completely unheard of until last weekend, and I cannot wait to see how this grows in the future. Obviously, financially, I don't know if it was a success or not. That's none of my business. But as far as driving the spirit of the Sacramento underground, you guys should all feel very proud of yourselves. Thank you very much for doing this for the scene. And then lastly, a special shout out to the Sacramento Underground that came up and showed out for this event. I think that we all showed that Sacramento can be a place where bands can come and see their fans and have a sizable crowd and put on good shows with good crowds. I've mentioned multiple times in the past, as well as earlier in this video, that this scene really survives not because of the music necessarily, but it's because of good people doing cool things for each other. And I think by showing out for this event, we did a cool thing for each other. We really showed that Sacramento can be a place where this subgenre continues to thrive. I'm gonna leave off this video just with some footage of the festival, so if you wanna check that out, that's what's gonna be going on from here. But thank you guys for showing up. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for making this event a success. I really hope this thing comes back next year. I think we have something wonderful here and something that the Sacramento scene should be very, very proud of. This is something that's unheard of, and I'm super excited to see how it continues to grow. So until next time, I've been Wilhelm Carver, and I'll see you guys later. Good night.